Look, let us be completely honest about the massive assembly line they call high school. It is a total factory line. It is a bogus system designed to turn your brain into mush, to grind you down into a compliant little clone until you are way too tired to think for yourself. I used to show up every single day feeling completely wiped out, just drowning in their administrative noise and stupid rules. Then I grabbed the Reboot framework, specifically the RBEOS blueprint, and treated it as my personal survival toolkit, my personal firewall. The whole architecture relies on 6 domains, what we call boots. They possess total structural equality. There is no hierarchy here. It is a lateral, bidirectional network, basically a web of resource flows and glitchy spillover. My partner in crime, who is basically my diagnostic architect, explained it to me like this. When one boot is healthy, it fully funds and subsidizes the others. When you neglect one, it taxes the rest like chronic background static on a cheap radio. I had to learn this the hard way by debugging my own life. Let us go through how this buggy code actually executes on the ground. Take boot 1, the family boot. For me, this is my backstage, the place where the cameras are off. It is supposed to give me a baseline of actual security, which is the foundational currency of the whole system. When my home life is solid, it spits out this incredible attachment security. That security is like a personal safety net that lets me take massive, high-order learning risks because I know I have a safe harbour to crawl back to if I fail. It acts as my primary training ground for setting clean, solid boundaries in my social life, and my home turned into this living archive of my roots, where I actually understand where I came from. Plus, a healthy family boot gives me the domestic stability required for real, deep work, meaning I can actually focus on my side gigs without my brain short-circuiting from stress. Even my leisure is better because instead of slamming doors, we can actually share play and build real bonds. But when my family boot was buggy, the Deficiency Echo was a total nightmare. My emotional boot suffered immediately, leaving me with constant background anxiety and this incredibly low self-worth. Because my home life was a complete battlefield, it leaked directly into my social world. I had massive trouble making friends, so my immediate survival tactic was to throw up this giant defensive wall, put on a leather jacket, and adopt this hostile, bitter, quote, I do not give a F, unquote, attitude to keep everyone at a distance. Culturally, I felt totally rudderless and alienated, like a ghost in my own family tree. At my desk, I was in survival mode, completely distracted by the chaos at home, which meant my side gigs suffered because I could not focus. Leisure just became this empty, desperate escapism because my actual house felt like a nuclear testing site. Then there is boot 2, the emotional boot. This is my actual internal processing power, and it spits out the currency of resilience, which is my capacity to handle performance under pressure. When I configure this boot right, it subsidizes my entire life. It gives me the maturity to break generational trauma cycles at home instead of projecting my garbage onto my family. Crucially, calibrating my emotional boot was the exact key that helped me calm down from that defensive, angry shield I was using to push everyone away. Once I stabilized my internal state, I did not need that fake armor anymore. I could stop treating everyone like a threat, drop the hostile attitude, show up authentic in my social circles, and find a deep, nuanced sense of my own identity. It acts as the internal engine for my performance under pressure, letting me focus on side projects without burning out. And it actually permits me to completely lose myself in healthy flow states when I am learning a tough new skill. But when my emotional boot gets buggy, the system tax is brutal. My family boot feels the pressure because I start projecting my frustration, slamming doors and withdrawing into my room. Socially, I start masking, putting on this fake, plastic, conformist persona to try and fit in, which leaves me totally exhausted. My heritage markers start feeling like fake cosplay costumes rather than real identity. At school or work, I get hit with severe imposter syndrome, feeling like a fraud, which leads to total burnout. And worst of all, my fun boot goes completely numb, leaving me in a state of straight-up anhedonia, meaning I cannot even enjoy the things that used to make me happy. Boot 3 is the social boot. That is my relational capital, my external support network of misfits and weirdos on the street. When my social boot is healthy, it acts as a massive pressure valve, so my family does not have to carry all my emotional weight. It actually taught me how to get along with people, and how to find the people I actually wanted to be friends with. Before, I was just shouting at the conformist kids I was forced to interact with in class, people who were definitely not my crowd. Calibrating my social boot helped me figure out how to target activities, communities and physical spaces where the people I actually respect, like the other creatives and systems thinkers, hang out. It gives me a massive belonging boost, turns my cultural heritage from a dry textbook into a lived, shared experience, and feeds my future career by tapping into the hidden gig economy. Group play is actually fun, and it multiplies my joy, but when I let my social boot decay, my home turns into an over-reliant, codependent pressure cooker. Emotionally, I get slammed with major comparative anxiety, what the internet calls FOMO, which leads directly to loneliness and depression. Culturally, my perspective narrows into rigid tribal groupthink, turning my heritage into a lonely academic exercise. My career side gigs completely stall out because I have zero professional connections, and hobbies turn into isolating chores or anxious status games where I am constantly comparing myself to others. Then we have boot 4, the cultural boot. This is about knowing my place in the narrative, my identity. When I tapped into this, it subsidized my family boot by giving us shared rituals and mythologies at home that made me feel connected to something bigger. It stabilizes my emotional boot through historical perspective, giving me an internal anchor when everything else is chaotic. Socially, it supplies this easy community shorthand for making fast, deep connections with fellow rebels. Professionally, it helps me read the room and master the unwritten rules of professional spaces, so I do not get chewed up by their norms. Plus, it gives me soulful fulfillment through underground art, zines, and subculture celebrations. When I ignored it, the Deficiency Echo was a mess. I had massive generational friction and total communication breakdowns with my family. Emotionally, it produced this weird identity dissonance and deep-seated internal grief. Socially, my relationships stayed completely superficial because I had no cultural shorthand to connect deeper. Professionally, I experienced constant friction, discrimination, and a total lack of fit in mainstream spaces. And my fun boots suffered because any leisure I did felt like a hollow, performative obligation performed out of strict duty. Boot 5 is the career boot. For a 16-year-old like me, this is about making my own cash for the first time and getting that first sweet taste of real financial independence. I started doing off-books, terminal repairs and flashing custom, bootleg firmware on obsolete computer deck hardware in my bedroom. When my career boot is green and the cash is coming in, it completely subsidizes my life. It takes the heavy pressure off my parents because I do not have to beg them for lunch, money or gear, which instantly reduces financial arguments and friction at home. Emotionally, it gives me this massive boost of self-efficacy and sovereignty. I know I can actually survive on my own terms, and that I am not completely trapped under my family's economic gravity. Socially, having my own pocket money means I can actually pay my way to travel and hang out in the physical spaces where my real friends are, instead of being stuck in my room feeling like a charity case. Culturally, I can buy my own zines, records, and custom pins, supporting the actual artists and underground subcultures I align with. And for my fun boot, my own cash is what lets me buy the manuals, the parts, and the solder I need to learn the high-tech skills I actually want to learn for fun. But when my career configuration was bad and I had zero income, the Deficiency Echo was brutal. I was entirely dependent on my parents, which led to constant nagging and arguments at home. Emotionally, I felt completely powerless, like a dependent child with zero agency, which crushed my self-worth and made me feel like a total failure. My social boot suffered because I was stuck at home, drowning in FOMO, unable to go to the spots where my actual crowd hangs out. Culturally, I was completely cut off because I could not even afford a blank cassette tape, and my fun boot went totally stagnant because I could not buy the supplies to learn anything new. Finally, let us get one thing completely straight about Boot 6, the fun boot. This is not about mindless, passive entertainment. This is not about turning your brain off and doing some repetitive recreation you already know how to do. I do not do golf or badminton. Who do they think I am? No, my Boot 6 is boxing. I go down to this gritty basement gym and learn how to actually throw a proper left hook. Just swinging wild, sloppy punches on autopilot is not Boot 6. Learning the actual physical science of slipping a jab, matching your breathing to your footwork, and hitting the heavy bag with actual technique. That is Boot 6. It is about the intense cognitive struggle of learning a brutal new skill just because you want to. And let us be completely real here. This feeds directly into my emotional boot. It gets out all that rough, raw anger I have boiling inside me. Instead of letting that anger burn my life down, I throw it into the leather. It is the ultimate stress relief. But mostly, I just really like punching things. When I configured this boot right, it provided resilient family bonding because we were learning new things together. It regulated my stress and reset my nervous system by forcing my brain into deep, hyper-focused flow states. It let me build low-stakes connections with the other fighters over shared bruises and brutal training runs. Culturally, it connects me to the gritty, unpolished community at the gym, and professionally, it teaches me how to read an opponent, think fast on my feet, and think laterally under pressure. But when I cut boxing out of my personal firewall, the decay was total. I started resenting my domestic duties because they felt like joy killers. My emotional boot turned into a complete pressure cooker because I had no outlet for my rage, leading to severe distraction addiction and major emotional spirals. Socially, I brought a boring, low-energy presence to my friends because my mind was starved for real novelty. Culturally, my expression stagnated into a static museum piece, and professionally, my thinking got totally rigid. I forgot how to take a hit, I could not adapt under pressure, and I literally forgot the neural pathways of how to learn. I do not look at these boots as a teacher's pet checklist. It is not a gold star sheet. It is my personal survival toolkit. Whenever my life starts glitching, my diagnostic architect and I do not blame myself. We do not do the personal guilt trip. We look at the code, find the deficiency echo, and debug the configuration of my PEP. It is how I keep their bureaucratic garbage from eating my life. If you want to copy my setup, the blueprints are right here. If not, keep running on their treadmill. Your call.